Hi, this is Paul, City Sailing. I want to do a short video about the Millwall Dock. Spent so long sailing here. So here we have an aerial view of the dock at the moment with the Docklands Sailing and Watersports Centre on the left hand side, the outer dock, and going north-south the inner dock. So the Docklands Sailing and Watersports Centre does some fantastic courses both for young people and for adults. Check out their website, DSWC.org, for courses. So having sailed here for quite a few years and now my children growing up and sailing in this dock, I wondered, how did it come about? What's the story? What's the history? Why is it here? So here it is, the history of the Millwall Dock, from the beginning to now with the twilight sailing with the Docklands Sailing and Watersports Centre, where you can join in, and the sailing right up to the dark on the evenings on a Wednesday. It wasn't always here. Here's a picture of the Isle of Dogs. Some of it's recognisable, with the chapel in the middle, and right at the bottom of the island, the ferry house where the pub still stands, the ferry house where the ferry used to go from the Isle of Dogs to Greenwich. If you look on the left-hand side, you'll actually see the 7 windmills, which were built up on a wall, and that's why that wall was called Millwall, and that's why we have the 7 Mills Primary School from the windmills that were built to grind flour on the raised embankment on the west side of the Isle of Dogs. From there, industry built up, and we had lots of dockyards and service industries on the edge of the docks. It's where the Great Eastern was built on the bottom left-hand side of the Isle of Dogs, and it became a world-known hub for engineering and industry. And it got so busy that there was a need to build docks. The Millwall Docks were built in 1868. It was a private enterprise. When they first built it, it wasn't connected to the West India Docks. It was later then connected when it became run by the Port of London Authority. It was connected through a cut to the West India Docks. The original plan was to have a lock where it is now by the Docklands Sailing and Watersports Centre, and through the docks and out to the other side into Blackwall Reach. That was never built, and that is Mud Chute, where the allotments are now. So-called Mud Chute because the way it was dredged out as a slurry and shot across the road into the pool there and left to dry out, which has made some very good fertile land for the allotments, which are still there today. These are the lock gates being built. You can see the huge size of them, and they were built and they were hydraulically operated to open and close. This is the glorious opening day of the Millwall Docks, and you can see the lock gates in the background, and you can see the sailing ship entering with all the flags flying on the opening day of the locks. If you go and have a look at the locks today, it's all filled in and there's a slipway, and that slipway is partially covered by sand and stone, but you can see the joint where the lock gate went, and you can see the indent that's been paved over where the lock gate originally went. And if we look down here, we can see where the lock gate went on the other side, and if we look down into the water, we can see where the original lock gate sat in this recess here and up against this knuckle here. The lock gate was quite revolutionary because it was opened and closed by a hydraulic ram. The hydraulic ram is still in the docks, and we can see it today sitting on the rails with the chains, and this was used to open and close the lock gates because they were so large. So today we can see where the lock ran from the sea, past the sailing centre and through into Millwall Outer Dock. And on Millwall Outer Dock today there's no commercial traffic. That went in the early 80s. We can see remnants. We can see the chimney from an old mill, or we can see the docks, which is now being built up with residential and office. And panning around, we can see to the Docklands Sailing and Watersports Centre 2 of the original cranes, and to the left of the sailing centre is where the lock gate out into the river used to be. Standing on the knuckle here, we can see where the dock comes in, and we look from a picture, we can see a square rigger sitting on the outside of that knuckle. Further down, there's a dock called Clipper's Quay now. It was a grave-in dock built to maintain boats. This is the maintenance of the Endeavour, and you see she's in the dry dock, held up by poles, and maintenance is done on the underneath. This is the Cutty Sark locked into the Millwall Docks on our way to the Grave-In Dock where she was going to have maintenance, which is now Clippers Quay. And we'll see her here in the dock, and you can see the step down at the sides. And here is the Cutty Sark in what's now Clippers Quay. This is the last time she had maintenance before she was taken over to Greenwich and dry docked in the early 50s. And you can see how sleek the design is of the Cutty Sark, more of a yacht than a trading sailing ship. If we look at Clippers Quay today, you can look into the water and you can see the step down, and you can see where the Cassian went on the entrance to block it off, to pump it out so people could work. Originally there was meant to be 6 of these docks, but in the end they only built 1 of these. They're called Grave-In docks, and they're designed to do maintenance on vessels. Just around the corner from that we can see this pump. There's nothing written on it, but this is a pump that was used to pump grain up into the silos. This actual pump, if you walk around and have a look at it, it actually came from the Victoria docks just down the road, not from Millwall docks, but it was used to pump the grain from the ships up into the silos for storage. So if we have a look at the dock today, we can see the pump, we can see Clippers Quay with a more modern footbridge over, which is disused. Looking down the dock towards the Docklands Sailing and Watersports Centre, this is Millwall Outer Dock, and we look round and we can see the inner dock looking round. If we look at this in the late 80s when the dock shut, we can see the difference between the 2 docks. So this is the dock today from the other side looking towards Clippers Quay, and we can see there's residential canal boats. As I said before, absolutely no commercial traffic. This stopped in the early 80s. This is Glengall Bridge. It's a narrow part of the dock. This is a modern gate that opens up. And if we look from this side, we see a better view of Glengall Bridge. So the Glengall Road used to go all the way across, splitting the island. It's now Glengall Grove one side, and it was renamed Tiller Road the other side. Looking at Millwall Dock, and we can see Canary Wharf and Development Canary Wharf. The bridge used to look like this. It was the glass bridge. The tower used to lift up, and it provided foot passenger access across the river, and it was known as the glass bridge. And here's another view of the glass bridge, and here we can see the glass bridge with the cranes where the docks were cleared, and if we look in the distance we can see the iron bridge on Marsh Wall, and here the glass bridge looking through the cranes on Millwall Outer Dock. This next one is taken from the grain silos, which I'll talk about in a minute, looking across to the Docklands Sailing and Watersports Centre, the 2 cranes that are still there today, and also you can see where the dock entrance is, which is still there today, which is a lock out onto the dock. And here's the Clippers Quay with the chimneys and the working chimneys on the docks, which is still there today. The docks are famous for mills, so this is the original McDougall's flour mill built, and you can see in the next shot the grain silo with the square on the outside with the original wheels in the background. Pump I showed you earlier was to pump the grain from the ships into those silos. And you can see behind the ship the lighters, which are called lighters because they make the ship lighter as you put the cargo from the ship into the lighter. During the war, the docks were heavily bombed by the German planes. Here we can see a picture of a Luftwaffe plane, and just at the bottom right hand we can see the docks. There was substantial damage to the river and to the docks. After the war, the Millwall Dock was redeveloped. The forklift truck had been introduced to Britain by the American forces during World War II, and its innovation was surrounded by a certain aura of performance produced by the hands of the American workers. So to get full advantage of the forklift truck, the cargo had to be received at a point of unloading onto pallets. So the cargo now had to be on pallets, had to be of a standard size and travel with the goods to the delivery point, which might often be another country. Ideally, ships were designed with open sliding doors to enable the goods to be loaded or unloaded. Because the PLA, Port London Authority, was strongly in favour of the development of the new techniques, a bold step of redeveloping the whole of the Millwall Docks was taken in 1957. The old, low brick sheds were demolished in turn to be replaced by modern sheds with 150-foot clear spans and over 20-foot height to the roof trusses and doorways, ideal for the modern cargo handling methods. This was done over a period of 10 years. One of the major obstacles to the PLA's planned layout was the area of Glengall Grove. This road, which ran between the inner and outer docks at Millwall, was flanked by a custom high customs walls connecting the east and west sides of the Isle of Dogs. The knuckles of the old drawbridge restricted the best arrangements of berths, but a replacement bridge would still need to be considered, and the replacement bridge was the glass bridge, in the middle of the diagram here. The development of containerisation was a death knell for the Millwall docks. Goods could now be carried cheaply and more freely, and that trade was moved to Tilbury and then further on down to Thames port. Last commercial traffic in the docks was in the early 80s. And the LDDC was formed to look at the future of the docks, and part of that future was the Docklands Sailing and Watersports Centre that we see and enjoy now. The docks today are for leisure purposes, and she's found fame a couple of times on the TV. Here's James Bond coming through Clippers Quay, across the docks, and then underneath Glengall Bridge. More recently, a group of local residents got together with a local school, Canary Wharf College, and developed and built with Hubbub charity the world's first recycled plastic boat. This was premiered at the Docklands Sailing and Watersports Centre, and it lives there now, and it takes young people out to educate them on single-use plastic and the history of the docks. So nowadays the docks has an important role in the recreation for young people and adults on the Isle of Dogs. So next time you walk around the docks or sail in the docks and you wonder whether this is a water feature and where it all came from, you'll know a little bit more. I hope you've enjoyed the video. We've got lots of videos at City Sailing. Please like and share. Thanks very much. See you soon. This is Paul, out.